A lot of entrepreneurs are not made to make millions a month. They don't have what it takes.
Why is that?
They don't have what it takes. They don't have the stress tolerance. They don't have the emotional tolerance. Like, for example, I have a really, really high stress tolerance. Really high. Whereas if someone else was in my position, they would fall apart. And by the way, that also, once again, just like how I said in life, everything comes with pros and cons.
Most people dream of millions, but only a few can handle what it really takes. Here's Iman Gadzhi's greatest lesson, straight from Dagestan.
And I think that's unfortunately one of the things this space lacks a lot of is just like old school respect principles.
What was a driver for that? Because I completely agree with you. I feel like our space can often be like the 10K one, chop shop. It's almost like rude, right? It's like rude selling. It's a wrong type of selling style. And even being, mentored by yourself and your team, I've seen like the elegance and the brand and the positioning. But what was a driving force for you to be like, okay, I need to be much more respectful with the people I work with, maybe the people around you, maybe your mother, everything together?
Yeah, so for me, funnily enough, it was actually my stepdad growing up. So he was a very interesting character. And I even have, like, a lot of people close to me a lot of times are like, why did you give him so much grace? And I'm like, listen, at the end of the day, he may have not been particularly nice to me and my mom, and eventually got to a point where he cut us off. But I'm just old school. Like, I still lived under his roof. For me, if I live under your roof, whatever you need to do, like, I was basically his personal assistant, his personal butler, like, I was on call 24/7, 365 days a year. So for me, that's, for example, how I learned old school respect. Also, I guess where I come from in the world, coming from Dagestan, these are things that are instilled in you. But then there's other ways that you can learn that. Like, for example, we have Alex here. Alex tells me all the time, one of the things I really wish I had gone through in life, I've never had a job, and I wish I had. Like, I don't say that as in like, oh, I'm better than having a job. Like, I really wish I had a 9-to-5, or especially something like physical, like very like just physically exhausting, because I don't have that context for, sometimes we forget that in our world, like we're having a rough day. And then for me, I don't have that time to like go back to like, well, fuck, when I was, whether it's like washing plates for 12 hours, it's like, okay, nothing will ever compare to like that time. So like, let me stop being fucking ungrateful little shit, and let me like have some context around like really the reality I'm living. So sometimes, I wish I had that, because I feel like that gives you a sense of respect. And even learning, like, because of my stepdad, for example, I learned how to bite my tongue, and that's been one of like the best things. Even my team, a lot of times, they're like, why aren't you reacting to this? I'm like, because I don't care about my emotions or being right in the moment. I just care long term, and I just care about strategy. And a lot of times strategy is you bite your tongue and you speak when the time is right. And you don't say anything until you've won the war in its entirety. Until then, you keep your opinions in private, or you keep your moves in private, or whatever it may be. So very long-winded, kind of went away from the initial question, but I think it's just a larger conversation about respect, and however you learn that respect or those old school principles. So for me, it was kind of because of my stepdad, and then even my mom, like small feisty Russian woman, like still to this day, like, that's my mom. So it's like, she is the only one that, not to say she tells me what to do, but like, if she shouts at me, I listen. Like, I just don't have a choice, and that's kind of where I come from in the world. So whether it's experience I wish I had, which is that having a 9-to-5 growing up and really learning like a proper day's work. Like, I know what a proper day's work is like mentally, and being like mentally drained, but like from a physical perspective, I haven't had that. So I think any of those things teach you respect. And if, especially in the space, maybe someone hasn't had a 9-to-5, or maybe they didn't learn that from their parents, go do something, whether that's, for example, boxing, like something that like teaches you, quite frankly, how to just shut the fuck up, bite your tongue, how to be humbled. And I think a lot of people in this industry, unfortunately, have a bad attitude because they haven't been humbled yet.
And even one thing, a big observation I've had recently is people that are not coachable, and people that have God complex and are a variation of it. I find that coming to this like mastermind and being here, you get humbled pretty hard. You see people like Ryan, you see guys that are just killing it, and like that puts you in your place. Maybe from a not from such a negative perspective, like working in Pizza Hut, which by the way I did at 19 years old. I was like I was making pizzas and stuff, and I knew that's the hell. I'm not going back there. So you don't need to have heaven and hell, but if you're not coachable and you have that chip on your shoulder, like, I don't know about you, man, but those first couple of years, that really knocked the chip off my shoulder. So that's why I see sometimes that when you make more money, I don't understand how you could become more arrogant. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, you talk about, like, for example, a gentleman like Ryan, like, I don't know if you know this, but there's a guy in there that does 1.4 billion a year with a B.
I think I'm sitting next to him.
Yeah, you're sitting next to him. Yeah. So, like, you talk about levels and whatnot.
Yeah.
And once again, that also, like, ties into, like, the fact, like, after we just wrapped up this presentation, he comes to me, he's like, man, I think about all the headaches in my business, and like, he almost wants what we have, and it's like, you do 1.4 billion with a B a year, right? You do 1.4 billion with a B a year between your conglomerate of businesses, and he wants what we have, and then we look at him and we're like, we want what you have. So that's why you also learn, like, the grass is never greener. Like, it's just like, there's no perfect business. Like, we all just, and that's why, like, I'm never jealous of other businesses, even though I'm involved in many different verticals. And I think that also has given me perspective, is like, I have things I hate about my physical product businesses. I have things I hate about my software businesses, about the info business. So I have just a very good understanding, and that also parlays into, the feeling of not having a God complex. It's like, you could sit here and have a God complex, and then you speak to someone like that, and it's like, and that's why I like speaking to people in different industries, because it gives you a very interesting perspective. And I like speaking to people in different industries without getting, like, FOMO or feeling like, oh, the grass is greener there. I can speak to them, and I want to hear about their wins and how their industry is, but then I also ask them about what are the headaches that come with your industry. So it gives me a balanced perspective. It's like, you have these rewards, but they come with these headaches. And also and I also a lot of times ask, what were your competitive advantages or did you have any competitive advantage? 99% of the time, that competitive advantages that got you to this point of success with your business. So yeah, I think it's just being around different industries. And as I said, in our pool, I think a lot of times it becomes this, like, cesspit of, like, oh, I'm 200 a month, I'm 20 a month. Like, I said it in there. If someone makes $3 million a month in profit in their info business, or someone makes 50 grand a month profit in their info business, I'm joking, I don't view them any differently. Because I'm like, I know we have a client in AFL that does more than 100 million a year. They did more than 100 million last year in info. It's like, I know their situation, where they're at right now, and I know sometimes for sure they would want to switch with the person that's just doing 100K a month with one employee. So there is no, like, perfect thing. It's just, give yourself context, and then also remove because sometimes, basically the reason I'm saying this is because sometimes they see people and they're like, oh, but they glorify the extra money. When it's like, I don't think you glorify, just have context that that's possible and there's people doing that. But also that doesn't mean that, like, you should do that. Because for a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs are not made to make millions a month. They don't have what it takes.
Why is that?
They don't have what it takes. They don't have the stress tolerance. They don't have the emotional tolerance. Like, for example, I have a really, really high stress tolerance. Really high. Whereas if someone else was in my position, they would fall apart. And by the way, that also, once again, just like how I said in life, everything comes with pros and cons. And the thing with me, because everyone wants to be like stoic, for example, like everyone wants to have a high emotional stress tolerance, but that also, in order to have high emotional stress tolerance, you have to make yourself numb to emotions. So I'm very numb to emotions, which means positive and negative. So for example, imagine your biggest dream day, that could make me feel nothing. And by the way, that's not because I take it for granted. Like, there's so many things in my life, I really don't take things for granted, and I still keep my feet on the ground with this stuff. That's the way I was raised. But I'm just saying, I don't feel it. Like, I'm just numb. Now, so that's why, that numbness and that callousness, basically I'm very callous, emotionally callous, because I've been forced to. Because if I was an emotional person, all of these things that come, and all these battles we have to fight, and fuck, especially, man, like, this last year has been the best year ever, but fuck me, it's aged me. But if I had the emotional stress, like the stress tolerance of someone else, like, the first battle,
you'd be out.
Yeah, you'd be out.
Be straight out.
But the benefit for them is they feel the highs and the lows. So, like, my emotional bandwidth here is like this. And I said, a lot of people, what they want is, because people who are very emotional, they don't want to feel the lows as much. And they're like, okay, so I'm just going to become stoic and not feel the lows. Yeah, but that also means you don't feel the highs. So there's a give and take with everything.
It's kind of like a lot of these guys are operating from 10s, so they're 10 out of 10 or they're 1 out of 10, but you want to operate from almost like a 4 to a 7, just consistently in that wavelength consistently. But would you say that with kind of emotional regulation that you have, that you're still at peace with what you do? Or do you feel like you're not?
Well, what does at peace with what you do mean?
Are you proud of yourself?
I guess the simple answer is yes, but the reason I guess I'm starting on this question is I don't ever sit with myself. I'm like, fuck, you did such an amazing job, blah, blah, this. Like, I don't know. I'm just not one of those people who kind of ruminates on these things. For me, I appreciate what we do, and I don't take it for granted that, like, you look at where we are with the clients that we have, with the people that we have in that room. As I said, like, 99% of people don't know that there's people in that room doing those sort of numbers. They're just very private about things or whatever. These are offline people. And then, yeah, like, I don't take things for granted. I don't take things lightly, but I'm just not a person that, like, ruminates and sits, and I'm like, I'm so proud of myself. Let me put it this way. If my life was a movie or turned into a movie, I will watch the movie. And I think for me, I feel good about that. I feel like I've had just the right experiences of very low lows and very high highs.
Yeah, man. 100% agree.